Good morning, hello, good evening, wherever you are, whatever time you're watching this. How you going? I hope that you are doing okay in the age of the lockdown. The eastern states of Australia are not really doing too well right now, but we in Adelaide are in our final day of our most recent lockdown. Anyway, I hope that the lockdown is treating you all right. And if you're stuck at home and bored, I have some more reading material for you. Think Again by Adam Grant. Let's check it out. Alrighty guys, so Adam Grant is what's called an organizational psychologist, and it's his job to assess large organizations and make changes to them at probably kind of like a HR level. So he's kind of halfway between a HR manager and a psychologist. And anyway, it's his job to shuffle things about to get the best possible outcome for that company. And the field that he technically specializes in would be kind of conflict resolution. And effectively what he studies is what's called productive disagreement. And if you've ever had an argument with somebody where you're really knowledgeable and you just pummel them with facts, but you fail to convince them, this book has a lot of ideas that you can probably take away. So 9 times out of 10, if you're in an argument with somebody, you're going to fail to really sway them. And that is because we don't crave having our minds change. What we want is external validation for the ideas and beliefs that we already have. Now, I've seen this plenty of times. I'm very much into anything that's related to space and astronomy, and I've had many arguments with shit posters on the internet about that stuff. So I've seen this phenomenon lots and lots of times. Alright, so the book opens with this really engrossing story about a group of people that are in a profession called smoke jumpers. And what they are kind of like, I guess you say, like the Navy SEALs of firefighters. So it's their job to parachute into wildfires and cut big breaks into the forest so that it's like a fire breaker. It's a big wall that the fire can't get past because there's no fuel. And a group of them ended up dying, but one survived. And he survived by doing something really unconventional. So they were running up a hill to get away from the fire, and this guy threw matches in the grass ahead of them. And he told all of his mates, just get down, lay in the smouldering ashes, cover your face up with a wet cloth, which acted as a filter. He's the only one that did it. Basically all the rest of them died because they tried to keep outrunning, and they were found with their tools still on. And yeah, and this guy lived because he tried an unconventional thing and thought outside the box, where I'm going to stop. Like, if there's no fuel around me, I can't get burnt. And it kind of really encapsulates the main point of this book, in that you need to think outside of the box. And a lot of the time that desperately needs to happen to promote fundamental change in someone's life. And he goes through a series of stories where someone has really fundamentally changed their mind. The best one in here is probably the story of Daryl Davis, who was a black musician from the South in America, and he has successfully deconverted or deprogrammed something like 200 people from the Ku Klux Klan, which is absolutely astonishing. And effectively all he did is just kind of ask questions. He goes over this technique, motivational interviewing, where effectively you kind of lead someone to a desired outcome, but just through simply asking them questions as to why they believe what they believe. And Daryl had great success with this. I guess the overall theme of the book is something what's referred to as epistemology, which is the study of why people believe what they believe. Yeah, he delves deep into some really, I guess you'd call sensitive topics like racism and things like that. But most of it is things on an organizational level. And he goes through these bunches of stories in which people have really changed their minds. But the ones at the beginning are really, really engrossing, and it kind of hits about the halfway point and then seriously loses steam. Like the beginning of this book is excellent, like really, really, really good. But I had to power through and force myself to finish it, because this is something, and I think it's a bit of a trend when it comes to a lot of self-help books, is that you could have said that in half the amount of pages that you would, and it felt like there was a lot of padding in there. And there's a couple of things that he kind of spoke about but never actually named directly. There is a phenomenon, or a pair of phenomenons known as steel manning and straw manning when it comes to arguments. And effectively what straw manning is when you can't really argue against someone, you find the stupidest and most ridiculous parts of their argument and just attack that. Effectively, you're building a caricature of their argument, and then you're just going for that. A really good example of this would be the decriminalisation of drugs. Okay, Portugal has had major success with reducing harm because they decriminalised all drugs, and the fastest way to get rid of a black market is to legitimise it, right? And their drug use actually went down. And there's the argument from the people in the US quite a lot that, oh my God, if you legalised everything, people would be out shooting smack up in the streets. And they actually found the polar opposite of that. Like, if they treat it as a mental health issue, they can more successfully and more easily get people into better and more healthy habits. The straw manning is something, now that I pointed it out to you, you will see it absolutely everywhere. Now, something I'm trying really hard to practice in my life is its opposite, what's called steel manning. And the way that that's done is when you're in an argument, you let your opponent speak, and then you more or less verbatim repeat what they just said. And something about that process of you speaking aloud their argument helps you better absorb it into yourself. And it's not something that's done very much in modern discourse. A lot of the time when you see someone who's a bit of a contentious figure, a lot of people will just straw man the hell out of them. A really good example of straw manning is the Kathy Newman Jordan Peterson interview, where she's saying what you're really saying is every 5 seconds, and it's grating to watch it. It's like nails on a chalkboard. And yeah, he never actually mentions them by name, although he talks about the techniques a little bit. So one of the parts that I really, really liked, and he talks about this probably about the 1/3 mark in, it's something he dubbed intellectual humility. And the best way of describing it is just being honest with yourself about what you don't know, and never being afraid to say, I don't know. Because if you're terrified of being wrong constantly, and you never say the words, I don't know, you're never going to set yourself up to be in an environment where you can grow. Which, I don't know about you, but come 10 years time, I don't really want to be the same person I am now. I mean, I think I'm on a very positive path, but I've got to allow room for growth. And if you don't, I mean, you're just putting yourself in a rut. Now, the companion to this intellectual humility that he speaks about is something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And you may have run into this. It seems to be quite common especially among sports fans, where they're like jumping up and down and effectively saying, oh, I could coach this team way better than the actual coach. And it's like, really, what do you actually know about coaching? Yeah, it's the armchair expert phenomenon. And yeah, it's okay to talk about things and be passionate about them, but just be honest with yourself and have some of this intellectual humility. So something that threatens this idea of intellectual humility is, I guess it's kind of like a process when somebody integrates an opinion into their identity. And there seems to be a lot of that in the world right now. An opinion or idea that is ingrained into them at an identity level, to challenge that threatens their very identity, and people take that very, very personally. And it's like, guys, that's a wall that needs to be broken down, and you can only break that wall down through discussion. But you've got to be very strategic, and it can't be a no holds barred discussion, if that makes sense. Like, it kind of has to be on an intellectual level, but at the same time on a manners level. You can't just attack them and beat the crap out of them with facts, so to speak. It just won't go anywhere. Yeah, and again, like I said earlier, is that they will just dig their heels in really badly and you won't get anywhere. So the end result of what happens when someone like truly ingrains an opinion into part of their identity is that they view their opposition, or as they view their opposition as kind of further away from their ideal person, it becomes easier and easier to dehumanize people. I mean, this is exactly what happened with the Nazis and the Jews, is that like it just progressively got further and further and further along the road to dehumanization until they viewed them as animals. And when that happened, they had just no problem with effectively putting these people down. And I mean, that is a terrifying prospect that most people don't think about today. And the opposite is kind of happening today, where it's like the whole phenomenon, if you've been on the internet for any period of time, especially on Twitter, you'll run into the whole it's okay to punch a Nazi. And it's like, okay, but how quickly that becomes, okay, I can define anybody I disagree with as a Nazi, and therefore it's okay to hurt other people. And you see how slippery a slope that is? And it happens very, very rapidly. Seeming like, I don't know, Twitter seems to be a machine designed specifically to have that outcome with people. And it is just toxic as hell. And then, yeah, it becomes hard. Once somebody gets to that point, it becomes almost impossible to pull them out of that mode of thinking, unfortunately. And it's just absolutely toxic. So yeah, overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the first half of this, but it becomes significantly harder to read at the end, and that is just because it kind of feels like this could have been done in about half the book that it actually was, and there's a lot of padding in there, and yeah, I kind of struggled to finish it, but the first half is excellent. Definitely worth your time, especially if you're kind of into philosophy and things like that, like I am, and you enjoy the idea of questioning your own beliefs. So, have you read this one? If you have, tell me what you thought about it in the comments below, because I really want to discuss this one. If you haven't, it is worth your time checking it out. I'd say maybe pick it up if it's on special or something like that, because yeah, just the back half of it isn't as good as the first half. So yeah, I think you probably should read it if you haven't. It is worth your time, and even if it is just kind of like your first introduction into more philosophical topics like the Dunning-Kruger effect and productive disagreements. Anyway, it's time to sign off. I'll see you guys next week. I hope that some of you are out of lockdown, like we will be at the end of today, but I'm going to probably eat those words, because I will not be surprised if we end up back there. But good luck and stay safe. Stay mentally safe during the lockdowns. Keep reading, keep speaking to your friends. Don't isolate yourself, don't lock yourself away. Get that brain in gear. As always, guys, I'm Nathan. This has been Walk It Off. And remember, go outside if you can. Get better. Be awesome. See you next time, guys.